There.
Okay. Welcome to the regular council meeting. So we're just going to move on here. We're going to resolve into the committee of the whole. A recommendation that council resolve itself in the committee of the whole meeting at 5:02 on June 9th. Moved by Councillor Bushel, second by Councillor Malmus. All in favor? All right. So right off the bat, we're going to go into the capital project update. And then we're going to get into bylaw enforcement, but capital project update. You want to take a look at that? Any questions for Daryl at this particular stage in regards to any of this or any of the staff by council at this stage? Councillor Malmus, go ahead. And then Councillor Bushel.
Two people are asking about the beach park concession washroom. I see some action over there, but we got when are they going to be open?
We're aiming for July. It's gonna take shape pretty quick here now. With the walls are poured, they're gonna do the slab on top, and it'll be how quickly they can get the fixtures and things going. We're gonna prioritize the park here and try and get that running.
Okay. Second one, wastewater treatment plant. How are we making with that?
So the baffle has been installed. We're seeing the numbers coming down for the BOD, which was our concern. It's taken a few weeks, but we're actually seeing the lagoon respond to that, which is good. The disc filter, they phoned me today. They're leaving the States this morning. They should be here next week with it. But the contractor's been on site several times. We've been going back and forth with concrete design. We think we found some good savings there. They're ready to get mobilized and get going on the concrete.
So are we getting a reduction in that price at all?
The method that was suggested by the engineer was pretty onerous for the concrete guy. He's made some recommendations. We've kind of played the middleman, got that back, and we've got their blessing on changing that design to make it simpler and hence a little cheaper.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daryl. Good job.
Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, no, through the chair, I just wanted to say, Daryl, the concession is looking good. The colors looks really good. And
Good.
I think it's going to turn out well. Thank you.
Awesome.
Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Again, Daryl, you got a heavy load and appreciate all your work. On the beach part, were you able to get your BC Hydro and permit in place and BC Hydro to come and do the connections?
Yeah, through the chair, we've been in touch with BC Hydro almost daily. We're digging on Tuesday is the plan. So we'll be bringing a lot more power right to the end of the parking lot from that point. And then we've got some things in mind where we want to do a custom pedestal for the stage, so it doesn't take power from the building. So we got some things in play, but that should be happening right away.
Thank you. And then just an update on the Shoe Shop Healing Center. Evan Parliament has been working hard on putting out RFPs, and we've got nine responses to the 9 proponents to look at to shortlist for a team to secure to start moving forward on our healing center, which requires public engagement and then identifying the services and then identifying the space for the services and then a detailed design for that space and tendering and construction. So all that's in play, and we've got a great field that has responded to what staff put out for request, and we've got 9 great proponents to look at to shortlist. So that's come along pretty good too. Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Parliament in regards to Owlhead Mountain Bike Park. We've sent out an application for a section 57. It's been submitted. Can you give us any indication of what the timeline might be when it comes to getting an answer back on that section 57? Wouldn't know.
You're asking me to comment when the province is gonna get back to us?
Good question, no, but what is the average type of response in it? 1, 2
3 to
to
5 years, 3 to 5 years.
5 years? Okay, thank you for that.
Honestly, it could be up to 6 months. It could be a year.
Mhm.
It's a long, long time. This is a long process. I had to guess the balance of this year, honestly.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions on capital? All right, so the bylaw enforcement summary, John, you want to give us an update on that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Through the chair, as you folks can see from the report, it's a fairly busy month for May. We did 6 or 15 official complaints, as well as many controls with a peak for traffic violations on the May long weekend. Due to the amount of traffic violations that I've been out there ticketing and identifying, we've also started receiving some complaints from the public in regards to receiving tickets. So I just want to bring council's attention to that. With the increased parking enforcement as per our policy, we've been getting many complaints from the public that have been parking there for however long and not received a ticket yet. They're now starting to receive those tickets, and of course, they're complaining about not receiving tickets.
Okay, Councillor Anderson and Councillor McKay.
John, is there signage there? Are these folks complaining because they're parked overnight on the street and now they're getting tickets? Or are they're parked they're incorrectly parked? Like, what's the?
Through the chair, there's been some tickets for people being incorrectly parked, such as too close to an intersection or too close to a driveway. But the majority of the complaints I've been receiving have been the ones that have been parked in excess of 48 hours, which is against the bylaw. And that's something that we'll be speaking with Public Works about, getting some signage or designating some areas exempt from that.
Okay,
Councillor McKay, oh, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
thank you. My next question was going to be, could we get some signage up? And I don't know why we need to make exempt spots. Like, we have a lot of people in town, again, making a living selling parking. So why are we giving away free parking? So
Councillor Mamas.
I already heard 3 times about the 48 hour, and John is absolutely right and Colleen's absolutely right. Part of the problem is that when we allow buildings to be built like the Legacy, because that's where most of those complaints are coming from, right, John?
Actually, no, I'm sorry. We've gotten several complaints from the Legacy, but the majority of the tickets that I issued over the weekend were from just this stretch here along Finlayson. And I have received complaints from property owners along Finlayson as well, but not as much as the Legacy, of course.
Okay, so the idea is that when you make an application for a building, such as even the application that came today for the guy who wants to do the rental of Sea-Doos a block from here, that you have off-street parking. Because the district of Sycamoose did not build roads wide enough to have parking on them. So that's why it's mandatory that everybody has off-street parking. So if you don't have, when the Legacy was built, they have plenty of parking, but they rent it out. And the people that have a boat place, that's their second parking spot, park there. Cars parked there, then they rent it out to 5 people, and it's a gong show. So there is, like you said, parking there's lots of parking in town here, ton of it. And yes, you might have to pay for it, but a lot of those people that are parking here are parking because they're going someplace else. They're not even staying in town. They're going up the lake, going to a cabin. So I have no issue with it. We discussed that it's something that maybe the district could look at. I mentioned the city of Sylvan Lake. And they have a parking pass, a long weekend, all in town would have had one. And they could drive downtown and park and they're not gonna get in any trouble. It's metered. Everybody else had to pay. Like I went to Sylvan Lake, I had to pay. To park in front of a restaurant, I had to pay. So if you have to pay to park, and now with this new system, you give them your license plate, they say where you are, and the credit card, and you're done. It's something that the district of Sycamore should consider as a source of revenue.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe, and then Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, back to the Canadian. I was basically asked the same question as Councillor Anderson did about basically on the sign portion of it. Like I read a few complaints letters and they say there's no sign saying that you can't do what you got ticketed for. So in fairness to the tourists and the residents, if we're not properly signed, we should put some effort into doing that, I think. To keep giving tickets and stuff like you're doing, like council asked, but make sure that the people parking there are aware that they're not supposed to be parking there, or the certain times they're not supposed to be parking there, whatever. And if you identify some areas, if you could share that with staff, and hopefully council supports, putting in whatever signage you feel might be required to warrant the tickets.
Yeah.
Through the chair, in regards to that, there's so many violations that we could put signs up for. It should be general knowledge, as they are part of driving exams, such as not parking too close to an intersection, not parking in front of a fire hydrant, such like that. So I just don't want to overburden our public works or turn the signage into an eyesore with the, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't. So I'll be really targeting areas that I feel are necessary, and I'm only putting up what it would be as a minimum requirement rather than a large quantity of signs.
Signs with timelines on it.
Timelines or no parking or no overnight parking.
Yeah.
Trying to get sort of everybody on the same page and all of our streets on the same page.
Yeah, no, there has to be total clarity. Okay, Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair, yeah, it's tough. I mean, education is important because these people like the Watts that wrote that letter have a cabin up the lake, and they've been doing it for years and years and parking on the street. But now we have, Sycamore is getting busier. We've had to make some changes, and people don't like to pay. They don't want to pay three boys, or they don't want to pay anybody for parking. They want to get it for free. But in Kamloops, they can't do it where they're from. They can't get it free parking. So it's just education. And John, most of those, do they have boat trailers hanging off the back end of them?
The majority of the folks that I did have boat trailers.
Yeah, and they're not even, I mean, sure, they're buying, some say they buy their groceries here and buy their gas here. And I mean, but yeah, it's they're coming from out of town and they're going up to their cabin up in the regional district.
Good point. All right, any other comments or questions for John at this stage? Thanks very much, John. Thanks for the report. Okay, go ahead.
During the council's attention, I'm very pleased to inform the council that a long-standing signage issue has become compliant, and the file has been closed on it. So
Which side?
located by your property, Jeff.
Okay.
Not in the corner of shoe shopping.
Nobody noticed the chainsaw at all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, May 2021 building report. Any comments or questions on this at this stage? Building report. 1.266 million, right? Okay. Development Services current application. Scott, do you want to give us a short update on this?
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. You can see on the right column is things that are happening at this meeting, the bold ones that happened at either at the Planning Development Committee meeting or this meeting. Couple of new applications since the last time you saw this 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it's been steady, and we have a couple that we're working through some of the application process on, and some others that are coming to council or are some of the subdivisions, but here for if anyone has any questions.
Okay. Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Sorry, Scott, I'm just going to back up to the permits. Do you know if there's a permit issue on Bayview Sunset North?
I don't believe so.
So the rock that they're pulling out of there right now is
Yeah.
could jeopardize that slope.
What's the address?
It's on Sunset North. I don't know the exact address. Top row,
Okay.
right next to the dam.
Almost, go ahead.
Through the chair, that's the one we talked about a little bit briefly at the Planning Development Committee meeting. And all of those sites on Bayview were engineered, and they all have 1.5 meters of a certain type of blast rock put into them, and that's what they're supposed to go to and build on top of. They're not supposed to be digging into that and blasting into the rock below at all. And that was from Brian Anderson, who, I don't know how much he was involved in it, but he built houses up there. Every one of those lots is an engineered site.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Next item on, any more comments on this?
No.
Okay. Staff report in regards to the dog control bylaw.
Right, thank you through the chair. At the mayor's request, staff are bringing forward the dog control bylaw just to see if council is satisfied by the existing bylaw. It was adopted in 1997 and last amended in 2007. And if council would like staff to spend some time with this bylaw, perhaps suggest some amendments, we would just put for direction. Things that the dog control bylaw could regulate are the number of dogs per household, licensing of dogs, unattended dogs in vehicles, designation of dangerous dogs, and then additional restrictions on those dangerous dogs, and then impoundment.
Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
This is probably to John, just to shorten this process. John, is there a reason this is coming up? Do we have a dog problem or have complaints?
Through the chair, we have had several complaints. This is just coming up as part of a standard bylaw review. Just to ask for council's direction on whether they're satisfied with the dog bylaw or if we should be looking.
What kind of, sorry, can I just finish asking? What kind of complaints are you getting about dogs?
Through the chair, the majority of the complaints that I'm receiving are dogs off leashes. I have had one vicious dog complaint. And that was dealt with by ourselves and our CMP to rectify that situation. But I would say the majority are off leash dogs.
Something that come up at the regional district was the dog bylaw, and one of the main concerns around the dog bylaw in areas like Falkland and so forth was the licensings of dogs. And the reason for the licensing of dogs is when a dog is wandering about and it doesn't have an owner or whatever, and we have a bylaw officer that finds this dog, at least you have some sort of record of where this dog belongs and who it belongs to, and then you can return the dog or give it a phone call or whatever, so forth. So I had a conversation with John and with Jen in regards to this, because this has been a big concern with the CSRD. So I don't know whether council has an appetite in order to maybe update our bylaw and maybe enforce a licensing issue or not. I know the dog conversation and the bylaw can be highly controversial based on the people that like dogs and the people that don't like dogs, and also with the dogs themselves, if there's an appetite, we could have staff maybe bring some recommendations, maybe as to how we could improve our dog bylaw for the benefit of John, our bylaw officer, and how we can handle dogs. So far, from what I've seen, I haven't seen too many complaints and received very many complaints at all in regards to, dogs that are giving us problems, right? So anyway, but I think maybe it should be up for some sort of review. Counselor, and then Counselor Bushel and Counselor McKay.
I do agree with the number of dogs per household. Mostly because there are some people that have had a house that had like 18 dogs, 16 dogs, like way too many dogs. And they got evicted from the place and they took dogs and locked them in the shed out in the back 40. And somebody went out there noticed it for 2 or 3. So the number of dogs per household, I don't know what that number should be. Because you know what, if you got breeder, you could have 6 or 8 pups, right? So I don't know how you do that. Licensing of dogs, I think that you're probably better off to make it mandatory that they have a dog tag that has a address and name and the name of the dog on it. That would solve that problem. Because licensing, they got to come in here. You got to administrate it. There's a lot of work to license them. And it's another staff member, which we don't need. Sorry. Unattended in vehicles, I mean, there's the policing does that. I mean, we can make it that it's a bylaw, but dangerous dogs, yeah. Impound, you got a phone, the impound license, have an arm, don't you, to come and get a dog? You're not gonna try and impound it yourself, are you?
Through the chair, at this moment, I do not have the training to impound dogs. Therefore, it's definitely not something that I would be doing until I receive that type of training.
And we would also need a vehicle that would hold the dog. So I'm not in favor of the impoundment party.
We could make a facility out at your place. It's not that far. Counselor Bushel, then Counselor McCabe.
That's through the chair. Yeah, I think a review of it would be good because it is outdated and I think part of the problem too is we had some residents at 2 Mile complaining that our bylaw didn't match our signs. So, some of our beach signs. So yeah, that's something a review, would be good.
Counselor McCabe, then Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, I think a review would be in order, if nothing else, to give John more teeth, no pun intended. I agree with all of Councillor Malman's statements, unfortunately. Including not bothering with the impoundment, because yes, John very politely said, no way he's doing that. And catch him in, what vehicle are you going to put him in, and then what compound are you going to put him in? And we don't have the revenue streams to start impounding. And unless it's under extreme circumstances where you have to involve the RCMP and stuff and a vicious dog kind of thing. So I agree with having a look at it. And I think Buddy would agree too.
Yeah.
It's my dog.
Counselor Anderson.
Well, Maggie, my dog, thinks that every dog should be on a leash because dogs run around and they do their business on other people's yards. And that's just, it's not polite. And a polite dog owner would keep their dog on a leash. So I think that's really important. I agree with the rest of what Jeff says. I don't know why, but I do.
She's not bad in 1,000.
I think that, I don't know whether it's like it says here licensing of dogs, but I mean, Dog identification of some sort would be beneficial, I'm sure, with a dog tag of some sort and a phone number on it at least so when you pick up a stray dog, at least you can contact whoever might own this thing. So I think that should be part of the recommendations as well. So there you go. You've got a little bit in order to work with, Jen, and so we'll wait for you to bring it back and some recommendations. Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. Strategic priorities, moving into that, counselors, have you got any concerns or questions about strategic priorities? Anything on the priority list at this particular stage? All right, Councilor Malmus, go ahead.
So for the rest of council, I asked for an update on our zoning bylaws at the planning committee, so I'm gonna ask Scott to enlighten the rest of council on our plan for zoning bylaw review.
We did have at the last council meeting a schedule of the zoning bylaw and when we'd like to get it in front of council for first reading, and I think we're aiming, was it August 1st or September? Check again to be sure, but yeah, we're aiming for that. We presented a public consultation plan to the Planning and Development Committee.
Do you have a copy of that right now?
We could find it on the Planning and Development Committee.
Give council a breakdown as to timelines.
Should be the last item on.
There we go.
This timing kind of works with the timing of the zoning bylaw. I believe we were aiming for like August 1st for first reading for the zoning bylaw. But yeah, we're rolling in a couple other projects into the public consultation for the zoning bylaw, the housing strategy, which we just engaged in a contract with City Spaces Consulting to complete that housing needs assessment. So we're going to do some of the consultation for that. We have the last one is the Main Street charrette. Deputy passed today. Why is that coming so late? And I think because we have so much going on, we want to do it right. We have the Eagle Valley Housing Society working on their process, the downtown revitalization plan. So kind of rolling all that into the Main Street charrette. Yeah, we're going to obviously start very soon. We just hired a summer student that is going to should be starting next week. Main part of her project is going to be picking up on that 3D model of the downtown, but also the consultation. And Sarah and Steffi are pretty excited to get started with this. I think Steffi just did a webinar today on short-term housing public engagement as well. So rolling a bunch of projects into one this summer. We're going to be out there a lot with the public and hopefully have some events out in the public, but Zoom meetings as well. I think summer student hopefully has some ideas on how to engage with people using different online tools. But yeah, it's going to be a busy summer, but hopefully we can move towards having that zoning bylaw. Told Councilor Malmus today that, hopefully by November we have it adopted, but it depends on the council.
We're looking for that date in August and September in regards to the concerns that Councilor Malmus has had for some time. Councilor Bushel, you're up.
One for Scott. Just we were looking at the dog bylaw. Because the zoning bylaw is going to be a while, and I know short-term rentals take a little while to implement, but is there anything we can do, to educate or anything we can do to start the process on short-term rentals? Because I had and it actually wasn't Colleen, it was, I had another Bayview owner up there approach me on the midweek about some issues up on Bayview with short-term rentals and some other issues. And you probably met Ken with the rocks rolling down and some other things. But is there anything we can do on short-term rentals to try to educate or let them know it's coming down the pipe? Because, I kind of agree with Ken that the short-term rentals, Bayview is not the place for short-term rentals because there's just no place to park.
We do, through the chair, we do have a survey on short-term rentals that's ready to go, and we've been waiting to get that out. Yeah, definitely some, I think the first one is gonna be like website, maybe a mass mail out, we're doing. That could be a bit of an education tool. Short-term rentals is a tricky one because, when someone calls now and asks us, we say, well, we don't regulate it, we complain, that's when we act. It's not what everybody wants to hear, especially if you're looking to do a short-term rental, you want to be told, yes, you can do it, no, you can't do it. Really, it's no, you can't do it unless you're in a commercial zone. So it's a tricky one. We can start the education though and surveys and let people know that, yeah, this is what is permitted now, what do you want to see in the future? And maybe people get the message, but.
Yeah, and it also protects our existing motels and, and things like that.
Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that, yeah, it does, it protects our existing, but I think there's, 200 homes in Sycamoose that are Airbnb, which isn't protecting our community. We've got a housing problem here, and we've got a lot of empty real estate. So, and I think Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not sit down when we started doing the MRDT and kind of figure out zones where Airbnbs would be allowed? Because, and I think we did, right?
Yeah, Melinda did a preliminary. Yeah.
So one of the things that was a red flag was a neighborhood with families. All of a sudden, a neighborhood with family has an Airbnb in the middle of it. And people are coming and going and speeding in summer, they're drinking, they're partying in a neighborhood that you moved into with your children because you thought it was going to be safe. I'm not saying these people aren't safe, but they certainly don't care about the neighbors or the speed, or they're not watching out for little children. So I just think that we need to quickly pull this together and get back on that project of where you can Airbnb, because there are some zones that work, there are some neighborhoods that don't.
So during the schedule in the Zoom meetings, and so these are the type of concerns that public should have, and those are major concerns as well, and those are the type of things that need to be brought forward at those meetings, right, Scott? Okay, Councillor Malmus.
I thought that the Airbnb that we had kind of an outline basically said that they were going to have to get a business license. They were going to have a different designation for taxation they wouldn't be classified as residential. They're going to get a different classification. And I guess, are we waiting to have that as part of our zoning bylaws, or is there that could be put out for review before as a standalone is the question, because people should see, because what's going to happen, with my understanding, what we went through was you're going to need a development permit to have an Airbnb, which means it's got to be referred to your neighbors within 50 meters, which that in itself will police the location of them. So there was no actual designated area in town. There was preferred areas, but you're going to have to do the DP process so that you basically, your neighbors all consent to it. So, when the party starts, you were part of the problem. So, and like you said, people up at Bayview are going to go no, most likely, but you don't know that for sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's a decision letting the general public make that decision, not. And I'd feel a lot more comfortable if that's how it works. So they don't come back to us and say, well, you just denied us. No, we did not deny you. But they need to be made aware that the part about the taxation, property tax, that definitely will be in there. So if you find because they're all advertising. So if you find a property, you say, well, your designation is not residential anymore. It's now whatever the hotels are. Your property tax just went up by 3 times. You're going to think about how much money you're making.
Good point. Okay, next. Anyone else on this? All right. So any more on strategic priorities of any sort? All right, then we're going to move on to the next thing. Okay, so time for the council report. So Councillor Aries, you're up.
Nothing to report.
Okay, Councillor Malmas, you're next.
I'd like to say that we've started this planning development committee, and I'm the chair, and we have some great discussion, and I think that it's helpful to some of the applicants, and the staff is doing a good job. I'm just wondering how we educate the public that before they come in the district office and start trying to fill out their applications and the problems start, how we can educate them that there is a planning development committee, that's their first place, not after, because some of the stuff that we talked about today is on the council meeting tonight. So that's too close to actually make any discussion. So I'm just asking how we could educate the general public, like on our website somewhere. If you're thinking about development, we have a plan. That should be, make a phone call, get on the page and.
Okay.
If possible.
We could also include it in our monthly e-newsletter. We can prioritize pushing it out through all of our channels that we use to communicate with the public.
Councillor Evans, go ahead.
Thanks. Just a couple things. One is I'm going to meet with Jamie Sherlock tomorrow, and by June 15th, we should be able to announce to you our plan for some Canada Day fun. We're working on what that's going to be. We're going to be able to do something fun, at least as fun as we did last year, if not better. So, yeah. Thanks.
What?
The kids, I'm grateful that BC kids got to stay in school, and the teachers and the parents and the kids are all glad that it's the end of the school year soon. That's all I got to say about that.
Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair, yeah, just been busy with a few businesses on Main. There's a business on Main Street that needed a hand and with some development and bylaw. So it was great to get Scott and Dale together and help assist them. So a Bayview resident was approached. I was approached by a Bayview resident in regards to some issues up in Bayview. Working with them, attended a highways meeting, virtual meeting with highways in regards to the bridge, and that went really well. Let's see, Jeff and I we had Evan, we had a rail trail, kind of met with some west side residents, which was a good meeting. And then planning, yeah, I attended the planning meeting today, and I kind of agree with Jeff. It's funny, you get some people that, go out and purchase a piece of property and they just, in downtown core or whatever, and the next thing you know, they want to open up a, space center or something. They should come to the community first and find out what they can put on the property before they buy it. And I don't know how you can educate the public that, because they go and buy the property and then hopefully they can, do something that's not conforming. So I don't know how you educate them, but it's development meetings it's going well. Yeah, it's going well. Scott's team is really working hard to get things out there. So thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
I attended the Chamber of Commerce AGM the other night, and just Sharon Thompson and Louise Perry have resigned from the board, but we thank them for all their hard work. And we've got Ian Bailey from G&G Tap and Grill, and Barry Burko from Whispering Pines are the newest board members. Carly did a great presentation for economic and tourism development for the chamber board. And the chamber's also got a new website up and running, and they have rebranded themselves to look more like the district of Sycamus. So it's more, yeah, they all look, it looks really good. So anyway, so yes, they're doing a great job. I'm more and more impressed with our chamber every time they sit down and have a meeting, and they come up with some great ideas. So very impressive group right now.
Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, thank you. I'm helping with the Shoe Shop Healing Center with the expression of interest that staff put out to help get a team to make that and turn that into a building, a site for the healing center. So we've got 9 strong proponents to look at, and hopefully we'll shortlist. We're working with Splatson on shortlisting who that team will be. So that's exciting to help move the vacant lot forward into our vision, our joint vision. Had a Zoom meeting with the First Nations Health Authority, again, just sort of a meet and greet to let them know that, and a couple Splatson members, Edna and Teresa, joined in on that to discuss how they might get involved in the planning stage and maybe help in the First Nations part of operating, and just more of an introduction and meet and greet. Later down the road, we'll ask them for money. I attended a 45-minute meeting with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure to get ready for the workshop on the June 23rd. We were allocated 45 minutes. I used about an hour and 20. I really enjoyed that. You didn't have to read between the lines in my discussion. And tomorrow I'll be joining staff with a meeting for Eagle Valley Senior Citizens Housing Society. They have their consultant, Urban Matters, doing an update in their charrettes, and they were nice enough to invite us to share their vision with us. So that's happening tomorrow. So that's good to see that's progressing, moving forward. And that's about it.
All right. So I also had a meeting with MOTI, and I deferred all of the concerns to the facilitator in regard to, you're gonna, in 2 hours, you're being talking to Councillor McCabe, so I'm sure he'll cover it all. Although I did express my concerns. Vaccine now, there's mobile units that are going out to most remote communities like Malakwan and Nakusp and all over the place. So, and you don't need to register. They're just going to take you off the street and they're going to give you the vaccine. I got my second vaccine the other day here in town, well organized. I was quite impressed. Had a meeting in regards to 2 Mile and in regards to the campground out there, and that's moving forward quite nicely. Constructed a video for the grad ceremony, and it was fairly lengthy and that focused on the future of the kids, and that went well. And we sent out a letter of condolence in regards to the situation in Kamloops to Chief Christian and Splatson. And we got a nice response from Teresa in regards to that letter. And so I'm pretty pleased that we did that. Yeah, there's other things that are going on, but that's pretty much my report for now as well. So, so we'll move on from there. Thank you. So now, rise and report recommendation that the committee of the whole now rise and report, and that the recommendations from the June 9th, 2021 committee of the whole be adopted. Need a mover? McCabe, Councillor Malmus, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so do we have public input at all?
We do. Deb Heap would like to address council.
All right. Deb, you've got the floor.
Yeah, so sorry, guys. I mostly want to apologize. I haven't been giving you guys any updates lately. I will be back in Sicamous in a week and a bit, and I will, I'll do an update to council. I'll talk to Jennifer about it at the next meeting. But in the meantime, I don't know if you guys had any questions for me or anything. We are doing stuff. It's just, yeah, sorry, I just haven't been reporting to you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Does not appear. If anyone else would like to address council, please raise your hand now.
Deb, put your hand down.
Can I address?
All right, I see there's quite a few people that have joined the meeting today, so thank you for zooming in and listening to our,
I think Councillor Anderson wanted to address Deb.
pardon me?
Councillor Anderson.
I just want to thank Deb. I was driving in the other day and the yellow flowers at the entrance to Paradise, filling in the star or the spark. They are looking so good. The guys did a great job. So good job, Deb. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Deb. Anything else? All right, we'll move on. So delegations on radon, do we have radon challenge results? There's a delegation, we have a person by the name of Pam online right now?
Pam is on the
Okay,
line.
then Pam has the floor.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to present. Today I'm coming from Winnipeg Treaty 1 territory and I'm really thrilled that I can join you by Zoom to talk about the project that we did with the District of Sicamous with the 100 Radon Test Kit Challenge. I don't know if I can share my screen, but I could share a little bit about the report of that project that we did. I think we provide it to council as well. Is it possible that I could share my screen?
And are you gonna add her as a host?
I was going to, and then I accidentally muted her.
Yeah, we can get you to share your screen.
Okay.
It's not letting me make her as a host, Kelly.
Okay, I will, Pam.
We all have your report on our tablets.
Okay, perfect.
And you should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah, I see that. Good. Thank you so much. So just an overview for anybody. I think you have had a presentation already on radon previously with the council. My colleague Anne-Marie Nickel talked about radon, but radon is the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers. And so it's a significant thing to be able to test and reduce it because it is a preventable cancer. And so by testing that, someone can know what their risk is and reduce it. So that is really why it's important for people to do some radon testing in their home. And so as part of the program, it's an initiative, Take Action on Radon, and that is funded by Health Canada. And our initiative is to provide radon awareness across Canada. And so the 100 Test Kit Challenge allows us to do that with the community, and as well allows us to get the radon tests into community members' hands and make it easy for them to test their radon and then be able to then reduce it once they know it. So it is a turnkey program, but we did require support from people within the community. So we really are thankful for the staff that helped us with it. And they helped us with distributing test kits to the community members, as well as collecting them after the 100-day period of the testing that we did. And just to let you know, Sicamous was one of 20 communities that we did this year. This is our 3rd year of the project. And so we had about 5 communities in BC, but a number of communities across Canada. And so in BC, the numbers of test kits are sort of on the provinces there. We've been able to distribute to over 2,500 test kits in the province of BC, but then also in provinces across the country. So it's great to have you participate in that national project. And as I mentioned, the program goals are to raise awareness. And so this is a specific project, but it's not the only thing that Take Action on Radon does. And so we want to continue to support you if you have any questions or any needs for support to provide citizens with awareness on radon in the future. And so one of our goals is that we would inspire legacy programs after this 1-year program. So we do want to support you in that. So as you all have seen, we produced a report from the testing. And so although we provided 100 test kits, there was only 46 kits that went through the full range of testing. So a few more went out to people, but probably are still yet to be returned. But by the time we produced the report, we had 46 test kits that had been returned and the results on. And so from those results, about 1 in 10 or 11% of the homes tested above Health Canada's guideline of 200 becquerels. And so we do think that it is important to continue to provide radon awareness to community members and let them know that this is something they should be testing their homes for, because the only way that we really do know if you have radon in your home is to test for it. And so on the information, the report, we do provide general information on radon in general, but also some assistance for homeowners to reduce their radon levels so that they can address it. And if there's any questions, we also provide some contact information and a little bit of information about the BC building code as well. Because as you know, radon is addressed in the building code. So we provide some information for people to help them understand some of the things that are included in their home with respect to radon. And then in our letter to you, we also provided some suggestions of possible legacy programs or actions that the council can do, including just continuing to provide free radon information to residents. And so you, either through building departments or libraries or on your website, and to continue to keep education levels so that people can answer questions when your residents come into the offices and such, or in the building departments as they talk with homeowners. Another way is to continue to make testing easily accessible. So this is sort of a one-year program to provide free kits, but you could provide either reduced kits or just make them easily available by having them either at the municipal offices, or ensure that there's a place within the town that people can get the test kits. And then consider providing incentive programs or some ways to help residents with reducing their radon. And lastly, we just also recommend that you be a good example, that as a municipality, consider testing your own homes, and then also public buildings, and then continue to provide public education materials to staff. And then also, as part of the resources that we shared with the community liaisons, Health Canada is developing some documents for municipalities. And so it's called the Radon Action Guides for Municipalities. And so they're in development and they're seeking your input on these. So we can provide you more information about that, but they're on our website so that you can review some specific guides that have been developed for municipalities in making decisions and understanding their legal aspect of radon. And so those are also available, but also we do ask that you take a look at them and provide input, because your thoughts are really valuable in this consultation process. And so that's my presentation today. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you very much for participating. We really thought it was a successful project, and we really value the municipal, you are a trusted stakeholders, and so residents listen to you, and so it really is important for you to be sharing this information to be able to engage with your residents that way. So thank you so much for participating, and I'm not sure if there's any questions. I'm happy to answer any about the report.
We have a couple councillors with questions, Councillor McCabe and Councillor Malmus.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for picking our community as part of your project. So in Sicamous, you got 46 kids returned. My house is one of them, so thanks again. So roughly 1 out of 10. I don't know if you drilled deep enough to say, is there a specific area in Sicamous that seems to be above the Canadian standard of 200, or were they sporadic throughout our community?
So as part of our investigation, we do map the information for our internally, and we reviewed that with your team. And really what we found was that there's no specific area that we were concerned. As we look on a map and we see the pinpoints of the homes and their levels, we can see that one is high and then neighbors low. And so there's really no indication of any area that is of concern, but that every area needs to test.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Malmus, go ahead.
Yes, so I was one of your guinea pigs as well. And I guess my report says I'm double the 200.
Okay.
So what is it says take action. So they really weren't very clear on you get the report, but after that, there wasn't much follow-up on it. So where do you go to actually get somebody to do the work?
Yeah, so there is a national certification program. And so on the report, you should have got a one-page email, or on our community report, we also cite a website where you can go. So the Canadian National Radon Proficiency Program, or CNRPP, does provide certified professionals to help you with mitigating. And we also do have, so we have guidance documents on how to reduce your radon levels in your home, as well as the Canadian General Standards Board has come up with standards that guide. So those are the training documents that we use for our programs. And there is a list on the website that you can go and find somebody to help you with reducing the levels. Or we can also direct you to those documents so that you can see what the standards are.
Okay, so, all right, so you got the report, the lab, and then your website is the link to, I'm assuming, the same map.
Yeah, there's a, with your individual report, there was a one-page sort of French and English one-page document that provided some links to help with finding a professional to help you reduce it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions for Pam? Well, thanks, Pam, for the presentation, and thanks for picking Sycamoose. And anyway, I just one question out of it all. We were talking about 11% of homes tested. Where do we stack up when it comes to the other communities that you've tested at this stage?
Yeah, so Sycamoose was, I think, our 5th community in before this year. And on average in BC, our estimates are around 8% of homes, but in your postal code, so I think it's V0E is your typical postal code, we actually have on average 22% of the homes are above guideline. And we have had a number of communities, in fact, the other communities that will be rolling the reports out that did participate this year have more than 11%. So we will be having a webinar once all of our BC communities from this year will present, and we'll show the results of all the different communities, which will probably be in July. And you'll see that the Kelowna area has above 25%. So there's others that are higher.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Pam. Thanks for your presentation, and thanks for working with the District of Sycamoose.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for those that did participate in it, and for your time tonight. Really appreciate that. Have a good evening.
All right, we're going to go on to eBus BC. We should have a representative from eBus by the name of John. Can you bring him up, and then we'll go through resolution after he makes his presentation.
Good evening, folks. It's John here with eBus. Appreciate everyone's time. I don't have a presentation this evening, but just I'll speak to what we're trying to do, and hopefully get the support of the District of Sycamoose. So we operate intercity motor coach service in BC, currently servicing a number of communities. The main kind of stops are Kamloops, Kelowna, Vancouver, and we go right now as far east as Salmon Arm. We also operate eBus and Red Arrow service all throughout Alberta, and in our view, the missing link is the connectivity between Calgary and Salmon Arm. So we're working on our application to the Passenger Transportation Board in BC, and as part of the application process, we're needing to demonstrate public need and community support. So we've been reaching out to a number of communities and business stakeholders and prospective customers. It's a little bit more challenging to do right now because of COVID and the restrictions of being in the communities. Typically, we would go out to the communities, try and meet face to face with council, with citizens, things like that. But, you know, now we're forced to kind of do everything electronically and virtually. So really our ask is for District of Sicamous to support our application. We plan to make Sicamous a stop on our service between Kamloops and Calgary. We don't have a location picked out or any kind of definitive plans or schedules at the moment, but for us, the majority of our stop locations are typically fairly close to the main highways. If you can appreciate people, you know, the travel, they kind of just want to get to where they're going as quick as possible. So we shy away from making too many stops. But certainly Sicamous is a community that we've garnered support from citizens, and we feel that it makes sense to make it a stop. So that's kind of really the quick version of what we're up to and what our ask is. So I'll maybe open it to any questions.
Thanks, John. Do you have, council, do you have questions for John at this stage? Councillor Aries, go ahead.
Hi, John. Councillor Ryan Airy here, through the chair. And we really appreciate you touching base. This is a service we've been waiting on since the departure of Greyhound, of course, and it means a lot to us that you would consider having a stop here in Sicamous, and we rather consider ourselves a hub where people choose to go to the either to the Okanagan or continue west as well. So we think we're quite important and a popular stop as well. I'd like to invite you to reach out to myself or anyone else. I'd be happy to pass you on to other stakeholders in the community if you're looking at locations. And I think every spot in Sicamous is close to the highway, so you'll probably find some good ones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. In due time, as we go through this process, we certainly will be reaching out to find the right partnership for a pickup drop-off location.
Great, thanks, John. So while you're still on with us, we've got a recommendation here that the district compose a letter of support for eBus application to the Passenger Transportation Board to extend its current bus service that will connect BC and Alberta. I need a mover on this. Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Aries. So we have a letter already drafted up for you. So we'll call the question here, and once we get endorsement, we'll get it off to you. So to council, call the question. All those in favor? It's been carried unanimously, so the letter will be sent off here probably by tomorrow. So thank you. All right, moving on. Public hearing, 1129 Riverside. Okay, so I'm going to read this public hearing statement out, and then we'll move on from there. We'll get Scott to comment. Okay, at this public hearing, council will consider an application for a proposed official community plan, OCP, and zoning amendment for a property located at 1129 Riverside Avenue, legally described as Lot 1, District Lot 452, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan, KAP 80730. District of Sicamous zoning amendment bylaw number 1004, 2021 will be introduced by staff. Presenting a brief synopsis of the proposal. Following the introduction, I will open the floor to presentations by the public, beginning with the applicant. At this meeting, the public are invited to make presentations to council, and all persons who believe their interest in property is affected by the proposed amendment bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard, or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed amendment bylaws. So please direct all your comments through the chair. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to debate the merits of the proposal with individual citizens. Please observe these rules. And if you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chair. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. While the current order of the provincial health officer on gatherings and events prohibits in-person attendance at public hearings, local government do have the ability to hold them electronically pursuant to Ministerial Order M192, local government meetings and bylaw process. To speak during the meeting, please click the hand icon to raise your hand electronically and you will be in a queue to speak. If there are technical issues not allowing a participant to comment electronically, participants have the opportunity to phone in to the hearing or provide written submission prior to the close of the public hearing. To phone in, dial 1-438-809-7799. The meeting ID is 842-4336-4235. If you do not have a personal ID, please select the pound key to continue. To submit written comments to the corporate officer during the meeting, please email publicinput@sicamous.ca before the close of the meeting. And let the district staff members online via Zoom know that you have done so. All those submissions will be retained by the corporate officer and copies of submission will be available from the corporate officer during regular office hours. Your final opportunity to comment on the proposed amendment bylaws will be during the hearing, as members of council are not permitted to receive further submissions after the close of the hearing. And Kane, please direct all your comments to the chair by electronically raising your hand to speak. So now I'll request Scott, Manager of Development Services, to provide a synopsis on the application. So Scott, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application that council gave first and second reading to bylaw number 1004 at the May 12th, 2021 council meeting. And this is the public hearing, and then it's on the agenda tonight to consider third reading. So this property is 1129 Riverside, located just close to the corner of Main Street and Riverside Drive. Here's a ortho photo of the property. Right now it's vacant, being used for some storage. And the designation is town center. So part of the OCP designation, the town center, development permit required. So as this rezoning moves forward, the next step would be a development permit. The proposal is rezone the property. The property is split zoned right now, C1 and C4. The back little corner of the property is zoned C1, and the proposal is rezone it to C4A, which is similar to the C4 zone. Waterfront commercial, residential, which allows residential in your typical waterfront commercial zone. The proposal is for a 7-unit residential development mixed with commercial at the front facing the street. And then there'd be below the residential units, there'd be garages. And then here's a drawing showing what the development could look like with the 7 units. And then some parking and some future commercial at the back of the property. There's an easement. You can see the easement going through the middle of the property, and then at the back corner is an easement area, and that's to provide parking for RVs and things for the strata across the road. This was sent out for consultation, and yeah, here you can see a chart showing what we received. Adams Lake Indian Band requested to be advised of the outcome of the zoning amendment. They'd like to be involved in as the development permit moves forward. BC Hydro said a statutory right of way will be required, so a blanket statutory right of way, giving them the ability to lay their hydro line. Interior Health interest unaffected, no objection from Ascon Cable. MOTI granted preliminary approval, so within 800 meters of a highway, MOTI needs to approve the bylaw between third reading and adoption. No objection from TELUS, no response from Squatson. Sarah has been in touch with Squatson a couple times, and they want to put together a response. Again, they'll have that opportunity at the development stage as well. Building inspector is in support of the development. Bylaw officer recommended that parking signage be provided as part of the development. And the engineering technologist had no objection. He did have some comments on the servicing that's going to be required. We did send this out as well. We notified the property owners, and there's a sign on the property inviting people to provide comments, as well as a notice in the newspaper. We did receive 2 responses. They're both from people in the strata across the road. They just want to make sure that the easement's maintained for the parking that benefits their property, again, later in this meeting, then council will have the opportunity to consider third reading. I think Marco is on the line. He's the applicant, and he's available to answer questions as well.
All right, thanks, Scott. So Marco, you're on online, I believe. So if you wish to comment, you have the floor.
I have no further comments. I think Scott did an excellent job of describing our proposal, and it's in line with what we've applied for.
All right, thank you. Jen, is there anyone that would like to comment on this hearing?
At this time, there are no hands raised.
All right, I'm going to ask a second time to anyone online if they'd like to comment in regards to this public hearing. Okay, I'm still not seeing any hands up, so I'm going to call a third time. Does anyone want to comment or ask a question on this public hearing? All right, I'm not seeing any hands up. So I declare that this public hearing is closed. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go on to public hearing, the second public hearing, 610 Maple Street. Am I required to read this entire thing?
Technically, yes. Get this part online for you.
All right, so technically I am required in order, I've read this once already, but now this is on a different piece of property. So I'll read based on our corporate officer, Jen, that I'm required to read this. So public hearing opening statement number 2. At this public hearing, council will consider an application for a proposed zoning amendment for property located at 610 Maple Street, legally described as Lot 3, District Lot 497, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 26956. District of Sycamoose zoning amendment bylaw number 1006/2021 will be introduced by staff presenting a brief synopsis of the proposal. Following the introduction, I will open the floor to presentations by the public, beginning with the applicant. At this meeting, the public are invited to make presentations to council, and all persons who believe their interest in property is affected by the proposed amendment bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed amendment bylaw. Please direct all your comments through the chair. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to debate the merits of the proposal with individual citizens. Please observe these rules, and if you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chair. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. While the current order of the provincial officer has a health officer on gatherings and events prohibits in-person attendance at public hearings, local governments do have the ability to hold them electronically pursuant to Ministerial Order M192 Local Government Meetings and Bylaw Process. To speak during the meeting, please click the hand icon to raise your hand electronically, and you will be added to a queue to speak. If there are technical issues not allowing a participant to comment electronically, participants have the opportunity to phone in to the hearing to provide written submission prior to the close of the public hearing. To submit written comments during the meeting, please email publicinput@sycamoose.ca before the close of the meeting and let the district staff member online via Zoom know that you have done so. All those submissions will be retained by the corporate officer, and copies of submissions will be available from the corporate officer during regular hours. Office hours. Your final opportunity to comment on the proposed amendment bylaw will be during the hearing, as members of council are not permitted to receive further submission after the close of the hearing. So Scott, your report, please, 610 Maple.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is a rezoning application and zoning bylaw amendment 1006/2021 was given first and second reading at the May 12th meeting. And then, of course, this is a public hearing, and then consideration of third reading is later on the agenda. The application is for 610 Maple Street. As you can see, it's in the Tree Street area, close to the corner of Maple and U, I suppose. And here you see the ortho photo of the property. And the proposal is to rezone it to allow a detached secondary dwelling. And that's the dwelling at the back of the property that the arrow is pointing at that would be proposed to be used as the dwelling. It's zoned residential low density, and the proposal is to rezone it to R1, which is residential detached suite, I believe, detached dwelling. Here you can see some photos taken of the property that staff took, and you can see the proposed dwelling at the back of the property. Again, we did consult with internal, external agencies. A sign was posted on the property. Neighbors within 50 meters were notified, and a newspaper ad was also placed. Here are the responses from the agencies. There were no concerns from the engineering technician. Building inspector felt that the building's gonna need some significant work to be suitable for a residence. The fire chief had no issues. Bylaw officer had no concerns. NMOTI preliminary approval for 1 year. So that would happen between third reading and adoption. No concerns from BC Hydro, no objections from TELUS or Mascon Cable. And I don't believe the applicant is on the line, and we didn't receive any responses from the public.
Thank you. All right, I don't have a record of who the applicant may be here. So if the applicant is online, just raise your hands. And you would be the first to give it an opportunity to speak. All right, I don't see any hands on Jennifer's computer here. So I'm going to call a first time to anyone else that would like to maybe comment or speak on behalf of this public hearing. At this stage, I'm not seeing any hands up either. So I'm going to call a second time. Is there anyone that has any comments or concerns regarding this public hearing? I still don't see any hands up. So I'm going to call a third time. Is there anybody that wishes to comment or ask a question in regards to this public hearing? All right, I don't see any hands up, so I declare this public hearing on 610 Maple Street closed. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thanks, Scott, for that. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, so bylaws and policies, rezoning OCP amendment application number 20-294 OCPZ 222 Temple Street. There's a recommendation here that the District of Sycamoose official community plan amendment bylaw number 1002/2021 be adopted this 9th day of June 2021, and that the District of Sycamoose zoning amendment bylaw number 1003/2021 be adopted this 9th day of June 2021. I need a mover on this. Councillor Malmus, I need a seconder, Councillor Bushel. Any comments on this? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Councillor McCabe is opposed, Councillor Aries opposed. Scott, would you just give us a quick briefing on this?
Sure. Yeah, so this is
He adopted, so, but there was 2 opposition, so I'd like you to give us a comment on it, please.
yeah, so it's located at 222 Temple Street. property, rezoning a portion of the property, about half an acre, from redesignated, rezoning it from medium density residential to low density residential and rezoning it from R5 to R1-2. Again, this one got third reading previously and was sent out for LOT for approval. That approval's come in. So yeah, council would be considering the adoption of this bylaw to rezone that half acre portion of the property.
Okay, thank you. So the resolution carried. All right, so moving on to the next one. Zoning amendment application number 21-061 RZ 1129 Riverside Avenue. Recommendation that the District of Sycamoose zoning amendment bylaw number 1004 2021 be given third reading this 9th day of June 2021. I need a mover on this. Councillor Evans, Councillor Aries. Scott, give us a quick update on this before I call the question.
Yeah, so we just had the public hearing on this one. This is to rezone that 1129 Riverside Drive from C1 and C4 to C4A as for a 7-unit residential and mixed commercial use.
Okay. Thank you. Comments or questions from council? Councillor Malmus, go ahead.
In the referrals part, I don't like the BC Hydro, a blanket SRW. They tried to do that on my property, 25 acres. There's 2 poles. Like, is it mandatory that we give it to them? Or is that actually the property owner's choice?
Through the chair, so I suppose they want blanket easement because they don't want to survey where the lines are going to go. So blanket easement is just, allows them to put poles where they go. It wouldn't be, I'm not sure. I'd have to check to see if it's mandatory that it's required. I believe in our subdivision development servicing bylaw, delivery of communications or utilities is required. And usually it'd be the interest of the community to make sure that they do BC Hydro and TELUS have the opportunity to put those on the property. I don't think the municipalities are probably not required to require it, but in general, it's something that is supported.
Go ahead, Councilor Malmus.
So I'll give you an example on my property. They wanted the blanket thing. The next thing I know, they're showing up and they're thinking about putting a microwave tower because you're signing off on BC Hydro, you're signing off on TELUS as well. So this is more to make people aware of exactly what you're giving the rights to BC Hydro and TELUS for when you do a blanket thing. They perfectly, unequivocally accepted the 6 feet that they needed down my property line for their poles, not the entire 25 acres. Now, this is a smaller piece of property, but, and then exactly a year later, they showed up on my property to move the poles, and they were putting the poles and the guideline wires to support the pole onto my property. And I went up and asked them what they were doing, and they told me what they were doing. And I said, well, no, you're not. And they said, well, yes, we are, because you signed this blanket thing. I said, you have the wrong copy. So don't kid yourself. They'll just show up and do what they want. That's why they asked for the blanket. So if it is our choice or it's mandatory by us, but I can guarantee you that this individual can have that removed. It should not be, it says it's required. It shouldn't be our obligation to that communication tower or whatever they want. It's for access for whatever infrastructure they have to put in, but most new builds, power's underground, not above. So the blanket thing gives them the right to do anything they want, BC Hydro and TELUS. This is just for information.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Malmus. Point well taken. Any other comments on this at this stage? Councilor Bushel?
Just a clarification through the chair. Scott, in here, this is the first time I noticed it, but in here it says 7-unit, 2-story multifamily / motel. Is it, we have motel in there. And I never picked that up before. Are they planning a motel or?
So they could rent them out short term.
Okay.
It is a commercial property.
So I just, for whatever reason, I just noticed motel this time around. Thanks.
All right. Any more comments or questions before I call the question? I'm hearing none. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next one, Scott. Zoning amendment of application number 21062, Z 3rd, 610 Maple Street. There's a recommendation of the District of Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw number 1006/2021 be given third reading on this 9th day of June 2021. I need a mover. Councillor Evans, Councillor Aries. Scott, give us a brief synopsis of this and as well, and then we'll call the question.
So this is an application that just considered at the public hearing, 610 Maple Street. It's properties designated low density residential, and they're looking to rezone it from R1 and R2 to R1C to allow for a detached secondary dwelling.
All right, any comments or questions on this? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, going on to staff reports. Reallocation of 2021 roadwork funds. Recommendation that council amend the 2021 financial plan to reallocate the $100,000 budgeted to overlay the Husky frontage road to pulverize and repave Pine Street. All right, do I have a mover on this? Councillor Bushel, Councillor Malmas seconds it. Daryl, would you give us a report on this as to why we want to do this? And I do have a question in regards to the Husky frontage road. What is it that we would do with that in the interim? Go ahead.
Sure. Put a link maybe we can put out. This was the last road assessment that we had completed by Urban Systems. They're currently working on an integrated master plan for us, and much of these conditions are the same or worse than they were. This is back a few years ago. So if we compare Pine Street, which is what I'm proposing, we move the reallocation funds to Pine Street. It's in the same kind of condition or disrepair, state of disrepair as the Husky frontage road is. So there's no arguing that they're both bad and they both need significant work. I'm just proposing that we look after an area that has more impact for our residents. Husky frontage obviously sees a lot of traffic and is in need as well, but I think we can do that operationally through our patching budget and just carry on with repairs for this year and look after paving Pine properly with pulverizing. There's one more factor that we'd like to consider when we're looking at doing some of the overlays, and that's the deep underground structures like the asphalt concrete water line down there that has a lifespan on it. And we're at a point now that through the tree streets, the upgrades to those water lines wouldn't make a lot of sense if we close that window and that AC pipe gets any older. It would get us to a point where we wouldn't want to be considering redoing the road and then digging it up to fix the AC, but we can get a good lifespan out of that road if we do it now. It was scheduled for 2023. I'm just proposing we move it up a little bit, and operationally we look after the Husky frontage.
All right, comments or questions from council? Councillor Bushel?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Daryl, I think that's a wise choice.
So Daryl, you're saying that, because I know that frontage road is in really rough shape there in front of the Husky, and we've finally got the Husky to listen to us a little bit when it comes to compliance. So you say 2023, we would look at that particular location to upgrade that frontage road then? We're 2 years out or 1 year now? I know you want to fix it up, but how long would that be?
We would get after this year with operational budget, not a capital project budget. So for a fraction of the money, I think we could patch it.
Okay.
And it would be okay for a while. We could address it as needed.
Okay.
To
Ellie, go ahead.
support Daryl, there is I believe we have $87,000 in our patching budget for the 2021 year, so there is sufficient funds to do work. We increased our patching budget for 2021.
All right, okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions on this? Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously as well. Thank you. Thanks, Daryl. All right, 2021 Provincial Cabinet Meeting Request. Recommendation that staff be directed to request for meetings with provincial cabinet ministers and ministerial staff at the 2021 Union of BC Municipalities Convention on the following topics. I need a mover on this. Councillor Malma, seconded by Councillor Bushel. Jen, can you give us a report on this?
Sure.
And maybe you can just comment a bit on the actual requests as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. It is that time again to request meetings for the virtual UBCM convention this year. It'll be held similarly to last year, where we'll be phoning in with conference calls. So I do have a summary in the report that I provided council of last year's requests and the meetings that were held. And so this year we have until June 30th to request our meetings. So what I'm proposing is that council give me direction on the topics. I prepare the requests in the background and bring those forward to council at the next meeting for your approval. And then I can submit the requests by June 30th. So meeting topics that I've suggested is perhaps we'd want to meet with Ministry of Municipal Affairs regarding municipal boundary expansion. With health, probably community health center and primary care network, just update and just continue that conversation with the Ministry of Health. And then Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, just furthering lobbying the province regarding pedestrian bridge, the 4-lane design of Trans-Canada Highway, and transit service delivery. Those are from the strategic priorities of council. Is there anything else that council would like to request?
All right, we got Councillor Councillor McCabe, Councillor Bushel, then Councillor Malma.
Yeah, thank you for the chair. Just house cleaning, the Minister of Transportation's changed from Trevina there.
Oh, that was who we had met last year.
Yeah.
So we went, yeah, so
Right,
that was the summary of last year's. And then under the recommendations, if you scroll down a bit further, I've got the suggestions for this year.
Okay, so under suggestions for this year, Ministry of Transportation, so I don't know how we keep them separate, but I don't know if we want to go to the provincial level and do that, but I think so. So I'm just throwing it out. So we'd want a scope change in the Bruin Bridge. And we want the scope change in Bruin Bridge to include the connection to the rail trail, from the bridge to the rail trail, parking for the rail trail, the fourth leg at Silver Sands intersection, a fourth leg at Silver Sands intersection, upgrade to the Capel boat launch to accommodate the loss of the Finnison boat launch during construction of Bruin Bridge, a retaining wall on the east end of the bridge approach to reduce the footprint to save our parking for boat trailers, and also include additional lighting under the bridge for improved visual aesthetics in the downtown core. So that could all fall under the scope change of the existing design parameters. Outside of that, of course, we want to ask for, like you say, a pedestrian bridge and put the pedestrian bridge in the scope.
Can I suggest, Councillor McCabe, that you maybe send Jennifer an email regarding all those requests so that she's.
I think she got them.
I think she's got most of it down and just confirm. I agree with what you're saying. But
and then the 4-laning, of course, is a separate topic, and the transit service is a separate topic. But under the current single-lane Bruin Bridge design, we want to see some scope changes for what I suggested there. And I think that covers most of council's concerns and all that stuff.
Thank you. Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair, last year we had a verbal conversation with Rec Sites and Trails for the application section, or the section 57. But that was with Rec Sites and Trails, but it gets submitted to Front Counter. And I don't know if we should try to combine both of them and see if we should have both of them. there, Front counter and rec sites and trails. And then the other one wasn't sure about, and Evan might be able to help me or help us. Should we put something in about flood mitigation on the waterfront? Is there any, would that be infrastructure or would that be under?
I would have to look to see the appropriate ministry. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Councilor Momus?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Bushel, because that's what I was gonna do, the flood mitigation for a walkway, which is another, and you know what, I know it's sparking up a dead horse, but Ministry of Lands, Forest Resources for Community Forest.
Oh, sure. Regarding the flood mitigation, was that just seeking additional funding support, or was there anything specific as to flood mitigation that we would be asking?
Funding.
Just funding? Okay, not just funding.
We basically, I think, have some work done and some design. We want to find out where the sources of funding are, what the parameters are, then come up with our Class C.
Councilor Anderson?
Jeff, I'm sorry, I missed your last statement there. Did you say ALR again? Should we be taking another run at ALR for the campground?
No, I said community forest, call for. I never mentioned ALR, but if you think we should do that.
I don't know. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Should we show up in their faces one more time?
I would recommend reconciliation and what's the ministry? It escapes me now. First Nations, shame on me. Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. We should meet with them because I think that's our only hope for the Eel River Campground.
Yep.
We can meet with the ALC. They're not a ministry, but we've met with staff before. And on flood mitigation, that would be through EMBC, which I believe is public safety. Jen.
In the meantime, we'll probably instruct you to arrange a few different meetings with the ministries. We have some time, not much though, do we?
June 30th is the deadline, so I
Okay.
will draft my request to get back to council at the next meeting for council's input. And if there's any more in the meantime, we'll get them.
Okay, cool. Councilor McCabe, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question through the floor to Evan. Evan, can you think of any ministries that we might want to talk to regarding the community health center for funding sources that we might want to have a face-to-face soon?
Yeah.
I mean, it's identified here just generically, sort of.
Sure. I mean, the obvious ministry would be Ministry of Health, but there's also the new ministry, addictions, mental health and addictions, which was led by Judy Darcy. She's left cabinet, but they have a new minister. But mental health and addictions for sure, and also back to Indigenous Relations Reconciliation.
Right.
Yeah.
Specific to the healing center.
Specific to the healing center.
All right, any more input into this at this stage? All right. All right, on the recommendation, did we get a mover in the second or not?
We did.
We did? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, CSRD electoral area E official community plan bylaw number 840 and electoral E zoning bylaw number 871 referral response. Recommendation that the district of Sycamus respond to the referral from the Columbia Shuswap Regional District regarding electoral E area E official community plan bylaw number 840 and electoral area E zoning bylaw number 841 as per the action report dated June 9th, 2021. I need a mover on this. Councillor Malma, second by Councillor Aries. Maybe Scott, can you give us an upgrade on this as well?
I can, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is the electoral area E community plan and zoning bylaw. Was referred to the district of Sycamus because we fall within the area. I believe they're going to a meeting June 15th for to allow public input, and then I think we'll go back to the CSRD board. Likely they'll hold a public hearing in the near future as well. So this is the district of Sycamus opportunity to participate. Just Sarah put a report together after reviewing the OCP and found some the statements, the objectives and policies within the OCP that could affect the district of Sicamous. I guess the first one is the vision statement. It's recommended that the district Sicamous support the OCP vision. It aligns pretty much with the vision of the district of Sicamous as well. Then there are a couple other places in the document where staff's recommending support for with some amendments. I can go through those individually, or you can see them in the report. Just at the end there, or in the middle, section 4.4, some policies, where district Sicamous and trail user groups can be added to the policies. And then using an example of Owlhead Trailhead. And then earlier in the document, just with dealing with the foreshore to direct commercial and recreational uses to the district Sicamous. And then opportunities where, just recognize the district of Sicamous in the policy around working with the different communities and the Chamber of Commerce for economic initiatives for the plan area. Yeah, if council has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Councillor McCabe, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you through the chair to Scott. So in our document, the first PDF, the last that was up there yet. So the last paragraph there, second sentence, the district of Sicamous further supports the replacement of RW Broom Bridge at Sicamous Narrows with a 5-lane span. So the ministry is currently calling that the one bridge option. So maybe some house cleaning here. But that includes a separated pedestrian and cycle lane. No. Just to try read between lines. No, we don't support that. We support a pedestrian bridge at the end of Main Street, and we're trying to change the scope of the Broom Bridge project to have a pedestrian bridge at the end of Main Street. I don't know how you want to word that, but I'm just throwing it out there that I don't want to say we support it, that's for sure, because
Scott?
No. And then just if I could finish, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
And the intersections between Old Sicamous Road and Silver Sands Road, well, we don't support that current design either because we're looking for that fourth leg at Silver Sands Road. So we're looking for some scope changes to the Broom Bridge project. And so we don't support the current design for two main reasons: the pedestrian bridge at the end of Main Street and another leg at Silver Sands intersection.
Go ahead.
So I was just wondering, reading the document, it didn't seem like, is this even the plan that MOT has right now? What is written here? Or has that plan changed? What MOT has proposed, has that changed since this document?
It has, because they're referring to a 5-lane and it's now a 4-lane.
Okay. So yeah, we can change that. So how would you like that to read? Like we can,
Well, it's not my opinion, it's council's, but I would suggest council support something that says, well, we don't want to sound negative, but we don't support the current design. We're looking for a scope change, like I said, at Silver Sands intersection to provide another leg and a separate pedestrian bridge at the end of Main Street. We want the cyclists and pedestrians off the Trans-Canada Highway. I don't know how you want to wordsmith that to make it sound positive.
Language within the OCP area E with the CSRD, and that's concerning to how it might impact the district of Sicamous, right, Scott?
Right.
That's what we're trying to get across when it comes to some of the language within. Now, I'm not sure, it's being constructed by their staff, but I think it's really important that we actually let the CSRD know that we're not really that happy with a lot of the language. I'm at about 50% way through this 120-page document. I've read every word in there now, and I've got a whole bunch of things that are highlighted in this thing. So But I appreciate Scott opening up this can of worms with the official community plan with Area E, and that we're not completely, supporting it. That's a key thing.
Yeah, if I can get council support, the direct staff to maybe tweak that last paragraph to reflect our desires in some positive way. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Do we have to support it? Can't we just ignore it? And that means we don't support it, right? If we're not.
Well, we need to be on record. This is a referral that means close to nothing, but might as well be on record.
It's a good question, Councilor Anderson. I'm not quite sure what my thoughts are on that right now, because I've thought that as well. Councilor Malmus.
Through the chair, I think that.
You're not silent for you.
You want to get that?
That was Daryl.
We'll hold.
Now I gotta take a 10-minute break because I'm startled. And I don't remember my thought ring.
We're talking about not saying anything.
No, I support what Councilor McCabe does. It increases that's concerned about the bridge. If it's written into their zoning, then it's basically saying that they're in agreement with us. Not in, if it's not in there at all, like they're using the 5-lane bridge, they're not using the leg, they're not doing the pedestrian bridge, but if they support it, it's just more people, it's like trying to get the entire CSRD to support it, basically.
There's a lot of content in the plan that I do support. And so that's where I'm kind of like, and I can see, the strategy behind this. Yeah, obviously, as well as what Jeff just said. So I don't know where to go with this. I don't have many more comments on it, apart from the fact that I'm reading through this thing and there's a lot that I do support. So go ahead, Evan.
A question to Scott. Have we confirmed that the CSRD has a regional growth strategy and a regional context statement?
So there is no regional growth strategy or regional context statement.
Is there a reason? Do you know?
Well, the regional growth strategy would involve all the communities in the regional district. All of them would have to agree on that document. Often it's
a good reason.
Getting all those communities to agree where the growth is going to occur and where the growth isn't going to be directed.
I raised the question because absent of a regional growth strategy and a context statement, we find ourselves exactly in the position you find yourself when you don't have that alignment between the regional OCP and the individual OCPs of municipalities. The one that I was familiar with and worked on in the island talked about, keeping urban settlement compact, protect the integrity of rural communities, protect regional green and blue space, manage natural resources, environment sustainability, build complete communities, improve housing affordability, increase transportation choice, strengthen regional economy. I just find it interesting that the CSRD doesn't have a regional growth strategy. Should be bringing all the member municipalities in. And if we could have a context statement, it basically says, okay, Sycamoose, this is what we hold dear, and align it relative to the regional goals. And therefore Area E and District of Sycamoose are better aligned moving forward. If we respond specific to this, I think we should also mention that we would encourage the CSRD to sit down with its member municipalities and come up with a strategy regionally. I'm assuming they've looked at it before, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years ago. Anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting with the CSRD because this is an OCP for Area E. And so what does the OCP read for Area F, Area A, so forth, so I take a look at some of the context on this stuff and this particular agreement, and they've been working on it for what now, Scott, 12 years, you were saying?
It's 2008.
Yeah. So, and the regional strategy, would impact, maybe Golden and Revelstoke as well, so. It seems to be kind of strange, to see this particular OCP being constructed just for Area E. And it is concerning in a lot of ways especially when it comes to the waterway. As to what their mandate is within the OCP. Because I know if it came to the board tomorrow and I was asked to support it, I couldn't support it. Who wanted to comment on this? Anyway, I think we need to challenge this somewhat.
Bless you.
More on this? Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
So are we directing to add a couple comments in there? Is that?
Based on this recommendation that we've got a mover in a second. So
We vote on it?
yeah, go ahead.
So the motion on the table is what was presented, but council would like to amend it. They can make a motion to add the words with revision to the comments pertaining to section 5.1. And I would address your.
Well, that's my concerns. I don't know the rest of council, all the other sections, but I'd like to make a friendly amendment to add some comments to section 5.1 regarding our desires, our disapproval of the current scope of Roomberry project, and we'd like to see additional leg at Silver Sands included and a separate pedestrian bridge off of the Trans-Canada Highway and at the end of Main Street. As two key things, the higher level stuff. I said that list earlier, but for the minister, but just to keep it high level, two key things, the intersection at Silver Sands at Fort Lake and get the pedestrians and cyclists off Trans-Canada onto a bridge on the end of Main Street. So I make that a motion to amend that. I'll move that if someone will second that, but
So Councillor Evans is seconding that.
second it. You could wordsmith around that.
Yeah. So I guess we
Okay.
vote on the amendment.
So that's the very
5.1.
5.1, yeah. And 5.1.2. All right. So,
We just need to vote on the amendment.
so we've got the amendment and seconder to the amendment.
We've got it moved and seconded, so we just need to vote on the amendment.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Carried. Okay, so now let's vote on the motion as amended. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think that, sorry, Evan's comments about, should that be a part of this, that we send something in this to
Growth strategy.
the rural strategy?
It's not section 5.1, it's.
It's something different. Should we make that as?
It's not part of the motion. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the motion if that's the question you're asking.
Yeah.
We can certainly make mention of it.
Okay.
Separately.
In a cover letter.
And this particular motion focuses, or this amendment focuses on this particular. We can make mention of the lack of an RGS and a regional context statement separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call the questions on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. So do we want a separate motion then in order to go forward on what you're suggesting? Because it's such a large document with so much context in it, but it doesn't really work in our favor. It's not a collaborated effort. It's almost opposite to the way our OCP is written. Your comments?
Yeah, well, I don't know the history of the CSRD vis-a-vis OCPs and the different electoral areas. But most regional districts have a regional growth strategy because they encompass a region and they all have member municipalities. And the whole intent is to, I like to narrow down to the three key pillars. You keep the urban areas urban, you keep the green space green, and the rural areas rural. And you try to work on connectivity and transportation. And typically it's highways, but in some of the larger centers on the lower mainland, Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, they're now focusing on potential passenger train or, high-speed rail to move residents. But I don't know the history of the CSRD. It just surprises me that with Revelstoke and Golden, maybe it's because of its size, it's so large that they haven't been able to bring all the municipalities together. If it means Sicamous being the first municipality to formally request it, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I'm just almost thinking that we should maybe make that request, but it should come to the board, for the CSRD board, as a recommendation based on the principles of collaboration, right? And so, I mean, we could bring it to the table by suggestion. Anyway, that's kind of how I see it. That's because you and I talked about this a little.
I mean, their planner, Gerald Christie, was part of the CRD, and he was very much engaged in the District of Sault's regional context statement, working with the CRD. He's certainly familiar with it. He's been there for roughly coming up 10 years, if not more. But I don't know the history.
Yeah.
I know the CSRD is a large geographical area, and maybe they've just been unable to bring consensus, but you could certainly start the process, because I think when I read this area EOCP with the lack of the statement, how do you bring consensus to the tables?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not quite sure, maybe if we did some bit of research, like what's going on up in the Chaco Valley, for an example, or in Houston and the regional districts and the communities there. Anyway, it's food for thought, but we've given Scott some direction here.
Scott.
Okay.
Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think some of the history of the CSRD is probably that not all the areas even have their own OCPs yet. Area E, example, doesn't even have its own OCP. And it's taken this long. I think 2008, they did Area C, Area F, Area B. I don't believe Area A has an OCP. And Area E is just getting an OCP. So I think they're trying to get OCP zoning in place where they venture to start working with the communities. I think that's the issue.
Okay.
All right, we'll leave it at that then for now. All right, any other comments on this? We've got direction. And we voted on this and it was carried. All right, and so next, municipal boundary extension, staff report regarding the municipal boundary extension. All right, Jen, you want to comment on this then?
Sure. Thank you through the chair. At the February 24th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting, the committee directed staff to revise the strategic priorities to include municipal boundary expansion and to conduct further public consultation to gauge community support. At that time, council had received a petition requesting that the council consider it. As council is very aware, it is a multi-year process and there's several steps, but the initial step is having a study. So there was a study done in 2003, and some council can either choose to update that study or issue an RFP to conduct a new study with a different proponent. And so if council would like to direct staff, absolutely they can. There's some options from council. So council could direct staff today just to seek funding for a study, because Kelly can speak to the financing of boundary expansion. Although it's included in the 2021 financial plan, it is funded partially, or I think primarily from development contributions or grant funding. And so our research, as we're coming up a little bit empty-handed right now of grant streams that are open. So staff could be directed just to continue pursuing funding before embarking on a study. Staff could be directed to prepare an RFP to solicit proposals for development of a new study. Staff could be authorized to commission TRU, who's already provided a quote, and $55,000 to update the study from 2003. Staff could be directed to conduct a virtual town hall at this time until we can have people back in our spaces again, just to gauge community input on the proposed municipal boundary expansion. If you'd like to have further input at this time before spending any monies. Staff could be directed to prepare a cost sharing agreement for the development of a boundary expansion proposal with property owners seeking annexation. Or staff could be directed to stand down and discontinue pursuing municipal boundary expansion.
All right, Councillor McCabe, go ahead.
Could we sort of combine number 1 and number 5?
Absolutely.
Because I don't think we should move forward until we have some money. But part of that is maybe looking at the property owners as a source. So maybe I'd like to suggest that we combine number 1 and 5. That Kelly, I'm sure, likes that idea. We don't do anything until we have money. Or find some money.
Yeah, and I followed up on the grant specifically for boundary expansion studies, and they're currently not accepting any applications. I can't get any information. So I will keep on trying, looking to see if I can find something else. My biggest thing on this is I'm unsure of exactly what properties are wanting this boundary expansion. Like, where is it? Right, if it's Hyde Mountain Inn or not, or what, right? So in order to even proceed in terms of a study from True, don't we need to know exactly which properties want to be included in this boundary expansion? That's where my confusion is.
Councillor Bushel and Councillor Malmus.
I think that group is actually preparing a list of property identification numbers and everything. And I mean, I'm not sure if they've even indicated they might even pay for some, some of the, so I think there's some discussions that still have to be had. Hyde Mountain, they've talked to Hyde Mountain a number of times. I'm not sure if they're in or out.
What about Swansea though?
Yeah, no, they haven't talked to Swansea. I know that for sure.
Councillor Malmus.
Yeah, I was just saying that the boundary extension is to include Hyde. That's actually, when they come in, and that's the issue, is I know 100% clear when you do a boundary expansion, is it by land area, and that land area has the vote, or is it by number of residents? So I'm assuming it's by number of residents, because if Hyde is counted as 1, then there's quite a few more residents that's the majority of them that have put together the petition to be annexed in. And doesn't your report doesn't say that and they read someplace that we have 60,000 financial implications. Our financial plan does include $60,000. We already have $60,000 budgeted.
Well, that's the expense amount, and how it's being paid for is developer contributions and grants. Yes, so the expense is in there. So if we don't get grants or development contributions, we have to do amendment to fund it from some other means.
Okay.
But that's definitely doable.
Okay.
All right, any more comments on this? Councillor Malmus, go ahead.
So I'm assuming step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in implementation is implementation, sorry, not inflammation. These are concurrent. 6 to 9 months plus 3 to 6 months plus 2 to 4 plus 6. So if you start today, you're 2 years out by this. Is that correct?
That's correct. Approximately.
Okay.
So are you looking for any sort of resolution here, or is this adequate for you to move forward?
No, I would be looking for a resolution from council.
Okay. So what are you recommending, Councillor McCabe, options, and then Councillor Malmus, when it comes to the options here? Councillor Anderson, you go ahead, at the floor.
So could we look at that staff be directed to prepare an RFP shouldn't we get the cost to do this first and then include the residents to look for funding as well as look for grant funding? So wouldn't 1, 2, and 5, can we put those together? But starting with 2, so we don't know how much is this going to cost. So let's start with the cost. So let's get a quote first.
Councilor McCabe, go ahead.
I think it's a bit of a catch-22, you know, chicken and egg sort of thing, like what Kelly was saying, like, how do we know the cost if we don't know who's participating? We need to know the boundaries first. And there's rumors, you know, innuendo that maybe Swansea Point might be interested in amalgamation or annexation. So we need to know the boundaries before we can identify the cost.
Go ahead.
So didn't we have a list of those? Wasn't it the folks across on the west side that came to us with a big list of names and
Yeah,
signatures
that
that they
was-
wanted to be part of?
That's Shandy Cove. So that's a little further south of Hyde Mountain, if you will. But what about on the other side of Mare Lake? What about Swansea Point?
Yeah, but that's hearsay. These are folks that have asked and they're putting together a list of names.
I'm just throwing it out. I'm saying, I agree with Kelly. We need to know what the boundary is before we can identify the costs.
Bob, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to add in whatever motion, if Councilor McCabe is proposing 1 and 5, I'd like to add number 4 in there to help with that question, to do a town hall some kind and consult the area to see who would like to be in there.
What?
Councilor McCabe.
Sorry for taking the floor so much. Yeah, that was just a thought, not really a recommendation for 1 and 5, was just brainstorm, throwing it out there. After all this discussion, I really think maybe we should just direct staff to flesh out what these boundaries might be first. And once we have a rougher idea of what they might be, then it could be twofold. Then start identifying the costs and then identifying funding source to pay for those costs. So we need to know the boundaries and how much it costs and then who's going to help share in those costs.
Councilor Malmus and Councilor Anderson.
So I agree that number 4 should be probably first. I'll find out who's interested in moving. Also, usually when you do a municipal boundary expansion, you start the process as the municipality. It's not usually the outside areas that come into you and beg for your services, right? So this is a different case and we don't know. I don't know if there's been a meeting held yet or anything, just heard that they want to own government. So where they're at with that, what their consideration is, I have no idea. But as the portfolio for boundary expansion, I'd like to have a chat with them and but you could have that chat by doing a virtual town hall in June. Now, I don't know how realistic doing it in June is because staff would have to set it up. You have the people involved in it. It'd be a Zoom call, I'm assuming. A lot of them have already had Zoom calls on the west side. Again, about Swansea Point. So I don't think that, my personal opinion is if you're asking for an RFP, basically, I think that it's going to be based on the area somewhat, but mostly on the people and the reasons why for services that we can provide. That's part of your thing. So I'm not familiar with the process. Maybe Evan could speak to this a little bit.
Well, to say that it's typically started by a municipality is not entirely the case all the time. Typically, it's driven by the request for services. Typically, what we call the deep services of both water and sewer. when residents want either potable water or sanitary sewer, storm sewer, they request the neighboring municipality for a potential expansion or boundary adjustment, annexation. Popular culture has it that it's a tax grab, that, you know, municipalities will basically initiate a boundary expansion because they want more tax revenues. There's a subdivision of 200 homes, there's an industrial park of 50 properties. The reality is the net cost of the municipality is actually greater when you look at the cost to service those properties. So in this case, I believe it's led by the residents who are looking at a legislative change, and specifically bylaw 900. It's got nothing to do with services, although there would be a benefit if we were to pursue services, but the annexation study will look into that. They'll look at the cost benefit of all the potential services and the cost to provide those services. But in this case, I believe the residents are wanting a more of a friendlier regulatory regime vis-a-vis docks and access to water, et cetera, that bylaw 900 does not provide them. It's a long process, and that's why the inspector of municipalities goes through this exercise. I've been part of two in BC, two in Alberta. They take time. There's going to be an ample opportunity for engagement, both at the political level and the staff level and the public level. There's an extensive consultation process where the government, led by an appointed designated person, will be spending time with this council, the residents, the CSRD, going over all of their needs and concerns, et cetera. But I've seen, you know, in closing, I've seen most annexation requests come from residents vis-a-vis the request for services. This one's a little different. If I understand it correctly, I think they want a change in legislation. There is an added benefit of potential picking up services if you're on a well or you're on a septic system and you would like to get hooked up to municipal services. I'm not sure if I really answered your question.
Councillor Anderson, you're next.
I think you did, Evan, because this whole thing was initiated by folks coming to us and asking us if there was an opportunity for them to be annexed, right? So I think the first step is that group that came to us needs to have a leader and figure out the area that they want to annex, like door knocking, or I'm not sure, but to Evan's point too, I think 900, section 900 is driving it, but I do think there's an opportunity for sewer and water as well. But I would think that it's going to go past Hyde Mountain and right around that.
I think the process is in place, and I think there's documentation that we haven't received yet. And I think there's a group out there that has leadership. There's been discussion around, you know, a certain list of names and so forth, but we haven't received that yet. So I kind of agree with what Kelly's saying. You know, let's get that on the table and whatnot. Let's see who the stakeholders are, and then from there we move forward with the fact that they're giving us a request in writing. Pretty much it. Councillor Malmus, go ahead.
Okay, so as the portfolio lead, this is a document that because it's for discussion, right? So I could actually use this document because at the last council meeting, I asked and it was approved that I go have some discussion with them. Well, now I have some meat and potatoes to sit down and have a discussion with them. So why don't I just move it forward? We don't need any action on this. I'll have some discussion with them. Bring the information back. I will deal with staff with that information, and they can prepare a report that we can make a decision on.
Yep, that's all right on. Yeah. Okay, staff agrees with that. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Councillor Evans, you wanted to talk about rodents.
some rodents are cute and some people like them as pets. And then there's other rodents that the residents of Sicamous are approaching me as I'm glad to be sitting back at the tables at Askew's doing my work. And multiple residents have said they have rats in their backyard and they're wondering if we're still on the case. It was probably over a year ago. We talked about the actions that were being taken on them. And I'm wondering if you could ask if there's, through the chair, maybe somebody here knows if we're putting traps down. They just want to know if we're on the job attacking the rat problem. I guess there's more of them than ever, so.
Through the chair, I can confirm that we do have some rat traps, Public Works. Not sure at this point how well we're advertising the availability of those traps, but they are there and we have lent them out.
Give us a call.
Yeah, I guess we could get that message out maybe a little clearer and ramp up with more traps if we need them. There's a bit of a balance with that because the traps take chemical in there and that's something that we wanted to advertise too loud, but we should make them available to those who choose to do so. We can look at doing that.
Cool. And one more question then. I believe about a year ago, somebody told us that there was a company that was also coming in to try and do something about it too, so.
Through the chair, we did meet with Orkin from Vernon, I believe, or Kelowna. They came up and met with us. They didn't have a solution that would have really worked for all of Sicamous. They suggested that perhaps we track the complaints where they come from, find the worst areas, and then hand out some literature from them, some information and contact information so they could work with them.
So do we have money set aside for pest control within the budget, Kelly?
Through the chair, that typically comes from the operations budget in parks.
Okay.
Not specifically for rodents, but.
Councilor Anderson.
So Daryl, do you get calls for specific areas? Like is the DOS getting calls about rats?
I received one last year.
That's it.
Nothing this year.
It's John, maybe?
Through the chair, I still get the occasional call in regards to rats. I am tracking where the calls come from, the addresses involved. And when I do locate or have a complaint about rats, I do go and do inspections. Try to work with the residents involved and their neighbors to rectify some of the situations.
So can I finish?
Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
So when you get a call for rats, should you maybe go get the cage, the trap from Public Works and set it in their backyard? I mean, sometimes it's not just talking about it and telling them to clean up the backyard or whatever. I don't know what attracts rats, like, but I mean, if there is a problem, maybe we should just provide them with a solution quick rather than just education. Just a thought.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you through the chair. I appreciate the information Daryl gave us about the availability of the traps for folks that need it. And they love things like the compost. It's glory. Thank you.
So where we are with where we're at the market.
There's thousands and thousands.
Go up to Colleen's place.
It's a condo.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Anyway, it's a problem. Okay, well, good answer, Daryl. We'll see where you go with that. And what can we do when it comes to communication with the community as to what we're trying to accomplish when it comes to rats? Can we put something on our website and inform them that we're trying to deal with this so that you know, people like Bob and myself aren't asking the questions, what are you doing with the rot situation? Maybe suggestion, maybe we can reach out.
Chair, hello.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think that you should advertise during the Montreal Canadiens games because most of Sycamoose will be watching, so.
Need a rat trap? He scores, need a rat trap?
Thanks, John. All right, moving on. Thanks, Councillor Evans. Letter of support requesting the District of Sycamoose Development Corporation building economic development capacity. There's a recommendation that the district provide a letter of support for the District of Sycamoose Development Corporation application to the building economic development capacity funding stream through the Economic Trust of the Southern Interior, formerly CITIC, for the creation of a strategic plan. I need a mover. Councillor Evans and Councillor Malmus. Carly, are you on right now? Yeah.
Yes, I'm on. I'm on.
Before you comment, Carly, I just want to inform council that area C, D, and F of the CSRD now have formulated their own economic development society, and they have applied for this grant as well. So anyway, go ahead, Carly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is essentially exactly what Mr. Mayor said. It's a grant that will allow us to take our economic development strategy to the next steps. So currently, as you know, we're working off a list of strategic priorities, and I'm creating an application to look at a very in-depth look in collaboration with all of the departments in the DOS, along with doing a lot of community engagement and consultation. We're going to use a lot of the research that I've already developed and established around community profiles and industry statistics so that we can use the funding that we are hoping to receive from the ETSI grant and put that towards the development of a very comprehensive and strategically developed package that is not, I guess, is more of a plan with really strategic results, or instead of just being another series of studies and notes that we can just keep referring to.
All right, comments or questions for Carly? All right. Did I get a mover on second or?
We already got it.
Got
We
it?
already got it, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question on the resolution. All those in favor? Carried. Knock your socks off, Carly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, going on, correspondence for information. There's a whole list here. This council, councilors wish to comment on any one of these correspondence that was sent to us for information. Councillor McCabe, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just the one on parking, we discussed it earlier, but we should respond, of course, to Susan Watts and explain what our policies are. I'm sure staff probably already have. Okay, it's done.
All right. Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. All right. Anything else? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
There's one here from Anne Margaret Hybert to the DOS, Daryl's team. Just giving them a big round of applause for 200 Main, doing a great job. So it's on.
We'll pass that on. Thank you.
Yes. Guys.
Yeah, those are nice letters to get.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we receive a lot of them then. So thank your staff, Daryl. Any other comments? Okay, I'm not hearing any more on any more of the correspondence. All right, so dealing with UBCM and so forth with the resolutions and so forth. Thank you. All right, and if that's the case, it's time to adjourn the meeting. And the recommendation that the regular council meeting for June 9th, 2021 be adjourned at 7:25. Councillor Evans, Councillor Aries, all in favor. Thank you. We're out of here. Thanks, staff.
This meeting was 20.
I know this dragged on, didn't it?